Basically the first night of observation with the dome, although this won't be a full-on imaging session, just due to the fact that the camera and the dome are not lining up. The scope and the dome aren't quite lining up. Still got some fiddling to do with that, but we'll get there. Just kind of wanted to walk through it. I've got the scope currently connected up and just pointed off to the side so you can see the shutter a little bit better. So the first start of this process is to go ahead and open up the shutter. I've been doing it here out of settings because it gives me access to the voltage. I had a little trouble with the battery making connection the other day, so we're just going to click on open, and that should be opening. Click back down here. This is takes an image of the dome every basically every 20 seconds or so. You get a new image. And it's an all-sky camera, so it records a time lapse throughout the night that I can then play back. But it also is obviously very advantageous to see the operation of the dome. So here in a second, it should update. We should see the shutter having opened some. Because of the updates, it can take like 20 seconds plus for it to actually send the signal to the shutter, because it's for it to save batteries, it only updates or checks in every 20 or 30 seconds. So just waiting for it. There we go. And so you can see it started to open a little bit there already. I'm assuming it nearly needed that whole 30 seconds to start opening. And you can definitely see that it's significantly open. There's some extra light in the dome. Normally, you can actually see pretty well in there, just from some LEDs that are lit on equipment, because it's got long exposures. But right now, actually, my monitor is actually powered up in there. I'm hoping it will give a better reflection off the dome, so I can tell whether or not I'm aimed properly out the shutter. Should change the images dramatically. So we're just going to go ahead and wait here a couple more seconds for the for it to be open. It looks like it actually is open based on the software. It's no longer opening. Should be open fully. So close here. Close everything. So I've really been having trouble with the gem axis offset. Seems to be what's incorrect. Although I was going to play with this again. So -50 could actually, and go back here to setup again. And this was actually properly 203 or 208. We'll start with 203. So, okay. So we're going to go ahead. Scopes actually are already connected. So we're going to go ahead and connect up. It's getting the data. So now if I check slave dome. Actually, I wanted to write that down, 12.4. It's the degrees off that it was connected up at. So. So we can see that the dome is rotated around, and we're just waiting for the image in here to update. There we go. While that's going, we're going to go ahead and power up our camera. So camera, we are going to connect to our camera. Cooler set to -15. Wow, it's actually 0 degrees there, so it should hit -15 without any problem whatsoever. Could potentially even go significantly cooler. But for now, negative 15 should work just fine for us for tonight. So we should be still in focus, but just to be sure, let's go to Focus Max. This is the autofocus and system. We're already on the hyperstar configuration, so I'm going to connect to the focuser, and we're using maximum DL. And we'll click focus. And there are some stars there I can definitely see. Looks pretty in focus to me. I think this will be pretty easy. Oh, star is too bright. Well, I'm not going to worry about the focus at the moment. I'm going to worry more about the telescope not being pointed out the dome. So let's go ahead and there we go. Close this. So we're just going to do a nice exposure of single exposure. 30 seconds should be fine. So you can see from the image here that the shutter's open. It's all opened on its own. It's rotated around, and it looks like the telescope could be pointing out the shutter properly. I can't tell from this angle. So that's why I'm doing a test exposure right now. And actually, so far, it looks pretty good. Let's go down so we can see the whole screen. Oh, looks good. Looks real good. See what that bright star is there in the center. And here, telescope. Connect telescope. Let's disconnect and reconnect up again. And hide. Okay, so we're on this star right here. So let's go ahead and go over to M74. Telescope, slew. Verify, yep. So there it is. It's definitely moving to M74, which should be right here. Okay, good. So it is lined up on M74. And now I just go back to my scope view and look at my images here. Okay. So it looks like the scope has definitely started moving fully. And the dome is also rotated around pretty good. Does not look like it's pointing out, though. I can see that if I look down the length of the scope, it does not look like it's pointing out the shutter. We'll keep watching here. It could be. It could be, though. So let's go ahead and take an exposure. It's looking pretty decent. So we'll do a quick exposure here. Well, I would say that's a very even blackness running across it. I do not think that that is taking exposure of the catching any of the dome. Well, there is definitely something there in the middle, isn't there? So that is supposed to be, that's M74. So let's go ahead and I'm going to drop the temperature down some more. Let's go to a negative 25. See if we can do that. There is definitely something there, that's for sure. So I think I'm only going to go to 20, negative 20 for right now. Okay. Back over to exposure, and let's do a longer exposure. Let's do a 60-second exposure. Okay, let's see what we got. Oh, goodness. So again, there's definitely something there. So let's see. Converting color probably won't change anything dramatically here. We'll see what we got. No, I would say I've definitely got too much green, that's for sure. Okay. So, but I'm going to say that it's looking out the shutter nice and clear. So I'm going to try another spot here. Let's go up to Andromeda. It's just a very slow process dealing with this, but now that the dome's fully automated like this, as long as it's pointing out that shutter, it looks like we've got a lot of the bugs worked out of the system. So this will make it so that, even if I only have an hour of imaging, I can pop it open and at least get some images. Whereas before, it was just a nightmare bringing the scope down to a field, setting everything up for an hour, imaging, being awake enough, breaking everything back down, which would take an hour, and then getting home. It's just really quite difficult. And the idea that the scope is always set up and all I need to do is click 2 or 3 buttons and I'm up and I'm imaging is just really a cool process, cool idea. Absolutely love it. So I think we're pointed now. I don't see any new movement going on. 0411. Oh, 4:30. So everything's still the same. So I'm going to go ahead and hop over to the imaging program. Let's do a 30-second actually. See if we're out of the looking out the shutter. Now we're much more higher in the sky at this point. So instead of being previously we were down here, and now we've moved, all the way up to here. And actually we went from here to M74. Now we're up to here, so we're getting pretty close to the zenith, a little bit north of the zenith, but and east of the zenith. So we'll see. This is all about aiming the shutter, and that looks good. Again, I don't see any white exposure, super light somewhere. Let's go ahead and take a look at our settings here. I might have some there on that right hand or that left hand side. This edge, I suspect, is caused by catching the light just a little bit. Catching the light reflecting off the dome, but it's very bright inside the dome, so it might just be real close. So let me just try something real quick. I just wanted to slew that off a little bit. Center it up actually a little bit more on the star. I actually suspect that the dome. Well, we'll see what happens with the dome. but I'm not quite centered here on, so I should be able to realign that. Get it perfect. Okay. That did not slew the right way. That is obviously complete exposure of the dome. So let me just take a quick search here. Advantages of Google. So what is 12 inches, 2 millimeters? 304, not 203. 304. So it definitely just changed the orientation of the dome. I may have had the wrong setting in there, but it's been very difficult keeping it matched up and keeping everything so that it's looking out that window. You'd think it would be really easy, but I don't quite understand the process as to why the math doesn't work out. It should be basic trig, but I guess different mounts, different vendors, different everything, trying to keep everything matched up. I guess it really doesn't surprise me too much. So we're at 931. And there we go, 950. So okay, so don't know if it's changed or not. Let's go ahead and do another image. It's actually worse. Okay. Let's change our position on the horizon. Let's go to no idea what the Sculptor Galaxy is, but pick it out here. It's right here. All right. So we know that the telescope is pointed that direction. Wait for the image to catch up. There we go. The telescope's slewing around. That doesn't look right. Okay, the telescope looks about right. It looks like it should be pointing due south. And that is, due north is up here, so due south is going to be over here somewhere. But the dome just isn't even remotely looking right to me. It's open 66.1. So that doesn't look right to me at all. I'm going to unslave the dome. I'm going to go to setup under the dome. And I'm going to go into setup, into the rotator. And I'm going to go home. It says it's rotating around, but I'm not getting new images here, which seems strange to me. There's a new image. Everything's lined. Oops. Doesn't show it rotating at all. That's kind of interesting. I think it might be slipping. I wonder if the gear is off. I think it might just be rotating around and just slipping. That would explain why I was having some trouble though, is if it's slipping again. Well, that stinks. Trials and tribulations. So, there is a motor, which is probably out of screen here. Yeah, it is. It's right down over here on the side of the dome. And that motor engages with this track that goes up and all the way around the dome. And that's what it uses to rotate the dome. Unfortunately, I have a feeling that that motor is not engaging with these cogs. Had a little bit of a trouble before, and might be happening again just due to some expansion, some contraction, and making sure the dome is perfectly round. It's not really easy to do, but I suspect that that's exactly what's going on. So I'm just trying to rotate in each direction and see if I can get some movement. And if I can, I'll get it back home and parked. But if I can't, then I'll just have to close the shutter and leave as is for right now. So I've just rotated at what should be a decent direction or a decent amount. So hopefully it's gained and moved, but it was sitting right there where my mouse is. So we'll wait a second. This is the worst case scenario. Like I said, we'll just shut the shutter and it'll be it for tonight. I'm going over there anyhow to work on some stuff, so not incredibly inconvenient. And while we're doing that, just to make sure it's actually a live image, I'm sure that it is. I'm just going to go ahead and park the scope. So we'll see the scope move here. Hmm. 34, so it's updated. Oh, and now the scope is moving. Okay. So yeah, so we're getting the scope to move, but it looks like the shutter, there's that black line and that black line are pretty close to moved up, or synced up, I should say. So I'm just going to hop over here and I'm going to turn it one way and see if those go a little less in sync. All right, well, does not look good for that, so we're going to move it the other way. And see if it moves off again off that mark there. Those two black marks kind of lining up together for the shutter. And if not, then there's obviously nothing I can do. The shutter's not rotating either way. So I can just, shut it down. And I know that it was missing, or at least likely, and it's easy. I just go and press the button one direction or the other and it'll start engaging, or it won't. So let this go. Yeah, it does not look good. So we're going to go ahead and close that. I'm going to go into the settings for the shutter and do close. And now the shutter is going to start closing here on us. And it'll be off the charger until tomorrow when I can get over there, but that should be noon, so no big deal. But you can see that the scope is definitely coming along. I'm going to do some better cable management because I really can't see the cables from over here, and I want to make sure that they're totally free from snagging on anything. But in general, I think that things are going pretty good. I'll be much happier as soon as I see that starting to close. I see it says it's closing. And the voltage is way down, which means the motor is turning. So I have faith in the slow update process of this camera. There we go. So now it's definitely starting to close. Still says closing. And I am using all this remote, and the connection does seem pretty bad lately. But it still shouldn't, even with it being slow and kind of choppy, it really still shouldn't cause any problems. And the shutter now says closed. The image is still catching up, obviously. But so there you got it. You know, I just connect up to the dome, open everything up, close everything. I have a Raspberry Pi connected up to a Raspberry Pi is connected up to a relay board that controls power, do a lot of the stuff in there. And so I just have a Python script to turn it on and off. So there we go. The power is off to those other devices now. Again, the monitor's on right now, but I'll be turning that off tomorrow. So sorry, it isn't more exciting. We didn't get any decent images, but it does look like the scope is lined up better. Couldn't test it fully because of the track not engaging. But so I'll fix that track not engaging. We can see that the shutter is now fully closed over here off to the right-hand side. I'll check the track's engaging tomorrow, and then once I do that, I'll aim the scope all around the place and see if it is lining up better with some software updates and with setting the height proper. It may have actually made that difference. But anyhow, so far so good, and thanks for listening. I'm sorry it was probably pretty boring, but definitely glad to have the opportunity to document all this stuff and get it, share it with the world. If you have any questions, you've got a similar setup, you're looking at a similar setup, reach out to me. Let me know. I am definitely here able to answer some questions, and I'm by far not an expert, but I can give you my opinion of something. So thanks a lot. Take care. Have a great evening, and I'll see you guys next clear night. Take care.